This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Hoffman. Today is Thursday, October the 19th, 2023. We're so glad you could join us. Later on in the program, I'm going to visit with Dr. David Newman of the National Pork Board as we talk about promotion during this Porktober National Pork Month. We'll also take a look at a pretty favorable harvest forecast here from the National Weather Service. But first, let's kick things off with a check of the markets. It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. Well, we're at the end of another trading day, and it's time to talk with Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net. And Curt, what did we see in those grain markets today?
Oh boy, the old corn market conspiracy guys came in here today. We pushed the December futures above $5 and got just a little over the 505 benchmark, closed above $5. So hopefully that opens the door to giddy up and go here for a change. We've got, a little fundamental wheat, but that corn's just been stuck sideways here. Hopefully it'll trip some technical buy programs in. I think there's a little urgency to have a little ownership ahead of the weekend. Crude oil futures were firm here. Just the geopolitical outlook here with Israel and Gaza going into this weekend. I think there's a little bit risk on. Harvest is winding down some areas and seeing some market stimulus going. Wheat, saw Chinese wheat purchases this week. No real purchases announced today, but China's buying soft red winter wheat, and I think that's helping the feed sector move right along in through here. Ethanol stocks fairly low, the lowest since 2021. Also, too, we're seeing a situation where bean oil stocks were relatively low here, and that kind of has given the market some support. Weekly sales, the weekly export sales report came in this morning showing last week we sold 35 million bushels of corn, 50 million bushels of wheat, 50 million bushels of soybeans, and 24 million bushels of wheat as of last Thursday there. So I think tomorrow, Friday, we can kind of hopefully hold in here together and finish the week here at the upper end of the range going into the weekend. Harvest progress. Corn's 45% complete as last week there, being 62%. I think that'll bump up, 10, 15%. Here locally, we're wrapping up. We got some moisture here today. I think guys were looking, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and getting fairly close. Hopefully that light's not a train coming down the track, but we're getting fairly close. A lot of the beans are out. Seems like the eastern part of the U.S., you get out into Indiana, Ohio, they're still a little slow. They're going to need some time, so there's going to be some harvest activity out that way. But through here, continue to hear variable yields, beans anywhere from 85 down to 65, corn 210 to 260, better than what they were looking at in June, of course. Weather-wise, it's getting a little support from maybe that southern hemisphere. Brazil continues to remain dry. Argentina has some moisture in the forecast here 10 days out. You got to remember, we're still in their dry season. They'll start to see the wet storms be a little bit more active as we go into November. So that weather is going to play out here as we move forward here on plantings. They're about 19% planted. Usually you start to see that to escalate up pretty good here as we head into November, which is just around the corner. Activity-wise, kind of quiet. But, man, we got a midday. We started to see a lot more activity in the bid asks there. The funds sold about 7,200 contracts of soybeans going into midday. I'm sorry, 7,200 contracts of soybean oil, and they bought about 4,200 contracts of meal. Meals have been a bottle rocket this week, and I think there's a lot of aggressive spreading in that sector. They sold about 2,200 contracts of beans. I think all those were bought back late in the day. They bought about 4,300 contracts of corn, about 4,600 contracts of wheat. So we got some bullish enthusiasm here for harvest activity still taking place around the Midwest.
All right. And what about livestock, those cattle and hog markets? What did we see out of those today?
Well, this morning on the weekly export sales report, you got where's the beef? Export sales were real disappointing on the beef side of the equation. It's only 0.4. Just didn't have any export news there. And that coupled with a little toppy technical picture of cattle and feeders, man, they were kind of sloppy today. They ran the sell stops under there and it kind of escalated, taking away the bullish enthusiasm. Tomorrow, cattle and feed report on feed 99 to 100.3. Placed 95.9 to 103.4. Marketing's 88 to 92. The marketing is expected to be about down 9% on the week there. So we'll see how those numbers come in. Hog wise, Porktober here, pork month, the lean index continues just kind of gradually grind lower here. You got the lean here at, in 80. You got the futures, about $15 cheaper than that. On the export sales, we saw some good sales on the weekly sales this morning. Sold over 30,000 tons, and Mexico's once again are a good buyer here. Consumer trend in here, they're still wanting to buy beef. Even though it's high price, they're still buying beef, cheaper parts of beef, but they're buying beef. Their second choice is chicken. Third choice is pork. So we need to reverse the role there a little bit.
All right. Well, lots of things to think about, and it is interesting how you bring up the consumer side of it there. I mean, I've seen quite a few sales on beef and chicken too, and comparing it to pork sometimes. Usually you see more in October, but just not seeing that transition. So I suppose, if you're getting something high priced on sale, you're going to take advantage of it while you can too.
Yeah, I'd continue to watch for those sales and put in the freezer and save it later on. Man, those pork loins are a bargain. Bacon's backed off in through here, so there's some buys out there, and I think there's going to be a little push here as we go into the holidays. Thanksgiving, turkeys, and so forth. But once we get into Christmas, I think we'll see some pretty good ham and loin demand.
Oh, most definitely, and looking forward to it. Now I'm already hungry. So, Curt, we thank you so much for the insight, and we will be talking to you again tomorrow. But tell us how we can get in touch with agmarket.net to look at more of your information.
1-800-779-1515, and or else you can go to agmarket.net, click on Intel. They got a lot of great information there, and as you sort through whether I should store or sell the crop, go to that site.
All right, and we'll be seeing you again tomorrow, Curt, so thanks so much for the insight.
Very good. Take care.
And that again was Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net. Let's go ahead and take a look at those closing numbers. Those come to us courtesy of the folks at Bar Chart. December corn was up 13 at 5.05 even. March up 10.5 at 5.17 even. November beans up 4.5 at 13.15 and a half. January up 2.5 at 13.31 3/4. Soy meal up $7.90 at 4.1420. Soy oil $1.55 lower at 52.23. Chicago wheat up 11 3/4 at 6.19 3/4. Minneapolis wheat up 5.5 at 7.39. Kansas wheat up 5 3/4 at 6.76 1/4. And oats up 2 3/4 at 3.93. December live cattle down $1.90 at 185.30. November feeders down $5.22 at 244.50. December lean hogs down 2 cents at $68. Pork cutouts up 30 cents at 77.95. Class 3 milk down a penny at 18.53. And that's been the Ag Market Recap. We're going to take a short break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association. And when we come back, we talk Porktober and pork promotion with Dr. David Newman of the National Pork Board. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to AMPM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Well, we are smack dab in the middle of National Pork Month, or Porktober as it's often called. We had a chance to talk about pork promotion and what we're doing to keep the market still high in demand, let's say, for pork, even though supply is also very high. That's with Dr. David Newman of the National Pork Board. Well, we are in October Pork Month, and I'll take the time now to visit with the folks at the National Pork Board. We're talking with Dr. David Newman, Senior Vice President of Market Growth for the National Pork Board. Dr. Newman, thanks so much for taking a few minutes to visit with us.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So during October, obviously, we celebrate everything that is great about the pork industry, and Iowa is no stranger to what's great about the pork industry as the top pork producing state in the country. But tell us a little bit about the work being done from the National Pork Board. Obviously, market growth is still something that's very top of mind for you guys as we talk about how we celebrate our products and how we grow our animals and raise our animals. How we're able to market that is just as important.
Yeah, thank you, Dustin. And you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, when you really take a look at the entire pork industry, this really comes down to consumer taking the product that we produce, which is pork, right? And either purchasing that in a food service establishment or purchasing it in a retail chain, consuming it and liking it enough to repeat the process. So market growth is very, very important on the day-to-day activities for your U.S. pork producers that we represent with the National Pork Board. And for me, in my role at National Pork Board, I've been involved in the pork industry my entire life. I'm very proud to be a part of the pork industry. Something that I say is this is about both short and long-term demand. We have a very challenging situation in the pork industry today. Many of the listeners here know that very well. This is about positioning pork to say right now, we need to move a lot of volume. We work on moving volume domestically and internationally. And then we also need to think about value and adding value and positioning pork to the right consumers for a long-term position for pork as a protein. And so that's something that we work on every day, and happy to give many different examples of those individual pieces we talk about.
Well, so that's what I was going to ask. You know, we talk about pork consumption. We're seeing more of it get picked up at the grocery store as prices, you know, for beef, for example, are quite high right now. But, you know, in the market for the pork industry, I know for the farmers, the numbers aren't maybe as great as we would like them to be. But obviously getting that value to the consumer, creating that demand is what's going to drive that price up. And how is that being accomplished through the checkoff?
Sure. I mean, and you're right. That's how we're actually going to work on this. And while we have challenging times, we have a tremendous amount of opportunity. So right now, you know, really this is about creating a position for pork and creating long-term demand. I'll give you some examples. We work daily throughout the year with retailers to actively promote pork through a variety of different topics. But it's really about understanding how are we working with not only retailers, but food service companies as well, specific to the domestic marketplace. Right now, we're going after people who are known pork buyers. We're going after people who are possibly lapsed buyers. We know that since the COVID-19 pandemic, there's been a lot of things that have been a little bit upside down in this meat business. As we start to see the economy change and we start to see government dollars that were going into purchasing for consumers, we've seen a lot of different things change. So we analyze that and we look at those insights on a daily basis, and we look and work with individual partners about how we can position pork. And to give you a very specific example, right now we have gone through the summer and now into the fall, where we are working very strategically with individual retailers, with very specific retailers that we know have high pork consuming audiences, to focus on items like chops, ribs, and ground pork, which is a big piece. And not just ground pork that we talk about every day and we love as representing pork producers, but also sausage as well. And those everyday items, thinking about pork as not just center of the plate, But thinking about pork as an ingredient is something that's really important when we talk about how we're going to position things moving forward. We also have a lot of activation in terms of knowing the customer. And what I mean by that is, who is the customer of pork in the future? And we're thinking beyond the generational promotion that we've done in the past. Think along the lines of boomers as an example. Now we need to focus on Generation Z. We need to focus on millennials. We need to focus on those consumers of the future. And the consumer of the future is not only millennials and millennial moms individually, but it's also a multicultural audience. So we put a deep dive into Hispanic, African-American markets as an example of really understanding who the consumer is, where are they shopping, how are they shopping, meaning online or in store, and how can we position this better as pork as a protein to put it into their basket.
And you bring up that interesting thing, and it's not just international cultures that do this, but even here in America, we talked about the center of the plate having the pork chop or the ribs or what have you, but it's also the bacon that maybe goes into a side dish with or alongside the eggs in the breakfast plate, or I put extra bacon in the baked beans, or maybe it's ground pork in a pasta dish or in a wonton kind of thing. It's a whole international thing where pork is more, like you said, than just the center of the plate. It is an essential ingredient to many cultural dishes as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's actually what gives pork an exciting position moving forward. This doesn't necessarily have to be a conversation about a substitute for beef, as you mentioned earlier, or even poultry. This is really celebrating pork for its taste and flavor, which is how we need to lead the conversation. Is pork is really, really good, and it's good beyond just bacon. Certainly, bacon is an important processed item for the pork industry. We all know that. We celebrate it. We should celebrate it every day. But also, fresh pork is a big piece. And you mentioned ground pork. You actually just talked about some multicultural dishes. This whole concept about pork as an ingredient is really, really important. And it can help position us long term in not only the retail space, the food service space, the e-commerce space, by taking and learning from what customers and consumers are doing and positioning it to them the right way. And that may not be the way that we did it 20 or 30 years ago. The new generation of consumer is entirely different. They shop different. They are certainly all digital. So it's a position right now where we need to understand them and what they want. They want taste and flavor, which is really important. But another thing that we know a barrier to consumption is human nutrition. So we've also got to position pork as a nutritious and delicious protein in the marketplace.
That again, Dr. David Newman with the National Pork Board. Let's go ahead and take a look at that ag weather outlook. Well, we definitely had some damp ground here in Des Moines to start the day, and some other places around the state as well. Check local listings to see how much was actually gained overnight. But any moisture will help when you're talking about a soil as dry as what we have. But is it enough to slow down the harvest? But what does the forecast look like for the next couple of days? Well, it looks like it's going to be harvest positive. We'll hear from the National Weather Service. Well, throughout the day, those showers that came through last night started to slowly push their way off to the east. Sun started to break through by the end of the day in the western parts of the state and into the central part of the state. And we saw highs anywhere in the low to upper 60s. Now tonight we'll start to see mostly clear skies. There may be a few lingering clouds and maybe a spotty shower or two in the east, central, and northeastern parts of the state. And we'll see lows anywhere from the lower 40s to the upper 50s, some variability there. But then tomorrow, mostly sunny skies with warmer temperatures in the western half of the state. Still some low to mid 60s hanging on in the eastern part of the state. But again, our high tomorrow, mid 60s to around 77 degrees. Looking at the affiliate weather map, we see Cherokee and Albia both will be sunny tomorrow with 72 degrees. Shenandoah sunny and 77. Des Moines sunny and 74. Waterloo sunny skies warming up to near 70. And Clinton will be sunny skies, the cooler spot, with a high of about 64 For more degrees.
detailed forecasts in your area, tune to your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate. And that's been the Ag Weather Outlook, and that brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel.
While you're there, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified every day when Ag Matters PM becomes available. You can also check out our free market podcasts. Those come to us courtesy of Amazon, Apple, Google, Spotify, and Podbean, and we deliver them right to your mobile device. From the iARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.